It is time to check in with Amanda Lang, CTV News Chief Financial Correspondent, talk about some of the big business stories of the week. Amanda, this week, if we could just talk about markets in general, we saw huge moves, big drops on the Dow. All this, I guess, based on posts on social media by Donald Trump with respect to relations with China, trade deals, and at one point, I guess, threatening 100% tariff over and above the tariffs they already have. It obviously hit markets, but I was talking to someone yesterday saying, despite all this, Canadian markets have done incredibly well so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, we do, of course, have a lot of exposure to precious metals. So gold continues to hit new highs, which is also driven by worry in part and, fears about what trade does to inflation. But what we were seeing this week, and it was so interesting because it came on a week that we heard from the IMF with a new outlook for the world. And like some other recent kind of forecasts, they said, we're surprised at how resilient economies have been, but they're very worried because they think that basically stock markets are sort of just looking past the potential danger, and that if it comes and it really shocks people, you'll see a huge downdraft. So what you got this week was maybe a little foreshadowing, because China is playing real hardball on rare earth metals. And it's interesting because it plays into kind of some of the conversations in Canada and what we might do if we played hardball, right? Cut off electricity, cut off potash supplies, and kill their agriculture market in the States. China's doing it, and rare earth goes into everything, and China has all of it. And so that was a huge, kind of a wake-up call for the market. We don't know what's going to happen fully. Trump hit back hard, but this could be ugly, and the markets had this little taste of it, and then they rallied again anyway, right? That's how they've been behaving.
Pretty much, yeah. Let me ask you, with respect to the price of gold, which has been, going up and up and up, and silver following along with it, I actually think it's done better than gold, I think, on a percentage basis. But as good as it is that, if you own gold, obviously, to see the price going up, is there concern when gold continues to go up and up and up? What is that portending?
I mean, gold is an interesting thing because there's some industrial use for gold, but now that it's no longer kind of the thing that backs up currencies, it used to be backed up the US dollar, there isn't really a lot of use for gold. I mean, you can argue that it's sort of it's worth what somebody's going to pay you for it. And so the rule has always been there's a place for gold in your portfolio. Sort of 5% was always sort of the number that gets kicked around because it's kind of a good store of value. And yes, when people are really worried, that part of your portfolio will do well. To load up on it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's sort of a weird market. There's arguably more investments in it than the physical gold exists in the world. So it's sort of if everybody wanted to take delivery of gold, for instance, if you own an ETF or whatever, you wouldn't be able to do it. So it's a funny thing, Aaron, because it has done well. It is sort of a thing people buy when they're nervous. I don't really know what the justification is for owning it. I own some because for that reason, it's just good to have in your portfolio, but you wouldn't want to be 100% gold any day of the week.
So let me go back to what we started with, was talking about China and the issues there. We have our own issues now. This concerns the EV sector. So the case has been made, of course. The Chinese ambassador, I think for the first time ever, told Vashi the other day that, if we get rid of that 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, the Chinese will reciprocate in kind by getting rid of tariffs on canola, on pork products, and obviously that affects a lot of Canadian jobs, but so does the auto sector. And I think the Prime Minister, at least up until this point, has been pretty cagey on whether we do or don't, or how much we do or don't. What do you make of all this?
It's highly complex because the tariffs, of course, on things like canola and pork hurt the Chinese end market, right? Remember, tariffs hurt your own domestic buyer, not us. Now, does it reduce demand? Yes. Our canola producers actually, since this has been going on, have found pretty good ways of crushing elsewhere and importing oil, finding new markets. But there's definitely a pain point, and you can see why the Prime Minister would take it seriously. The problem, of course, with EVs is, on the one hand, we want EVs if you want to convert all of us to this new way of driving. But the U.S. is going to draw a red line in that. And so the question is, in the middle of negotiations on our biggest and most important trade deal, do we throw up this kind of red flag to the bull and say, we're going to let this Chinese product into our market? I don't know the answer to that. There might be some middle ground where we allow the Chinese EVs, but at some form of tariff rate, not 100%, but 30%. Who knows? This is one of those things where one moving part definitely touches another, and it's all very complicated.
Yeah, of course, the other part of that is, and this came up when we were talking about it earlier in the week, is this is not just China-Canada, right? The U.S. is involved directly, because they're the ones who kind of kick this thing off with that tariff. Does Canada really want to be in a situation where if we were to go ahead and rescind that tariff or change it somehow, we would be offending the U.S., opening us up to more perhaps tariffs?
That's really the problem. And the U.S. is very focused on autos. And of course, for our economy, for better or worse, we are super integrated on autos, and we can't really afford at this moment, literally, to lose it. So that's where our interests lie. Is there a way to find some trade-off with China? Can we be negotiating in back channels with the U.S. about what is allowed and what isn't? That's probably all going on, or should be, but it's not a straight up, we can just do a bilateral agreement with China and assume it doesn't matter to the U.S., because it will.
So the other big story this week, of course, is Stellantis pulling, production of the Jeep model out of Brampton and moving to the U.S. And Doug Ford, of course, and here we go again, kind of talking tough, saying we can't allow this kind of stuff to keep happening. But at the end of the day, what sort of pushback do we have here? And again, I know that Mark Carney spoke to this the other day, suggesting there are times to push back and there are times to talk, and now is time to talk. But it's been time to talk for the past 3, 4, 5 months.
Yeah, and I was interested to see Minister Joly talk about legal action. I mean, we do invest a ton and offer tax credits, so kind of backdoor investing, in the automakers, both federally and provincially, in order to induce them to do different things, invest in the market here. The reality is that they're looking down the road at what the U.S. is asking from them and demanding from them, and they're making rational business decisions. And I imagine their lawyers have looked at the fine print on the investments we've made, and they know even if they have to pay something back to the Canadian government or the provincial government, it's worth it. So this is the hard knocks. I mean, this is why we have to get a deal with the U.S., because business capital is rational, logical, unemotional, and if the U.S. makes it impossible to be an across-the-border player, they're going to go to the U.S., and that's the truth of all of the big three. So we have to pay attention.
So every time we talk, we always bring up, and I'll bring this up because we're going to get a number next week, interest rates. We had a cut last time around. What's the consensus now for the next interest rate decision?
So I think there's still a sense that rates will come down at least one more time. It's mixed on whether it's at this meeting or if it's one more time before the end of the year. The economy, of course, the labor market is showing weakness. And our central bank now has in its favor the fact that the U.S. central bank is lowering. So, and they're in that same mode of watching jobs particularly. And so it doesn't put us on offside, right? We don't like to get too far out of step with them because it can affect our dollar. But we are seeing enough softness in the economy that it's there's probably a strong case to try to stimulate a little bit.
We will leave it at that. Amanda, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great to talk.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.